and welcome to PopLove's tutorial on how to dye organic cotton t-shirts. Thanks for joining us today. So before we get started, I want to go over a little bit about what we're going to need in order to start this. So first thing, obviously, you're going to need a couple of organic cotton t-shirts. Now today with our pot, we're going to be dyeing 2 t-shirts, okay, in this pot. I'll explain why in a little bit. The next thing besides, now with these t-shirts, you're not going to need just, a regular t-shirt. You're going to need to pre-treat it, and I'll explain that in a few minutes, okay? The next thing you're going to need is a little bit of salt, okay? You're going to need some kind of a heat source. We've got a little electric burner here that we're using. You're going to need a pot full of boiling water, okay? You're obviously going to need your dye. Now today we're going to be going over how to do basic store-bought dyes, okay? We'll go over in a different tutorial how to dye with natural dyes as well, but for today we'll keep it simple, basic, how to dye with regular store-bought dyes. You're also going to need a measuring spoon and a wooden spoon, and don't forget gloves. Okay, so to get started, with your t-shirts, okay, when it comes to organic cotton, or any cotton for that matter, you're going to need to pre-treat them with a mordant. Now, if you want to know how to do that, take a look at our other tutorial, okay? But for now, just know that you need to pre-treat the cotton in order for it to be able to absorb the dye and to stick. So you want your t-shirts to be damp, because this is going to help them to absorb the dye a little bit easier. Alright, so I think we're about ready. So, step number 1, okay, what we're going to need to do is we're going to take about 3 tablespoons of just regular salt, okay, and we're going to put that into the dye bath, okay. Okay, great. Now, with our packet of dye, okay, this is just a basic powder dye. We're going to use about 2/3 of this packet, okay, so you need about 1/3 of a packet per t-shirt. So, open it up, okay, and we're going to pour about 2/3 in. Okay, that should do it. Okay. Put whatever's left over just over to one side for now. Now what you want to do is you want to mix everything together so that everything is dissolved. Now the reason you want to make sure that everything is dissolved in your dye bath before you put your t-shirts in is because if it's not, you're going to get little splotches and spots on your t-shirt when you put it into the dye bath. So you just want to make sure that everything's nice and dissolved. If your water is nice and boiling hot, it shouldn't be a problem. I think we're about dissolved already. See, it didn't take any time, did it? So, now that we've got our nice, you see it's a beautiful dark blue, okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to take our pre-treated organic cotton t-shirts and we're going to put them into the dye bath, okay? Now, as you're doing this, the reason you want these to be wet is it's going to help the material to absorb the dye, okay? So, it's also going to help to avoid bubbles, okay? Air bubbles in the dye bath. Because what's going to happen is if there are air bubbles in the t-shirts, it's not going to absorb the dye evenly. If there's any little area that's poking up out of the dye bath, it's not going to get dyed like the stuff that's inside the dye bath, okay? So, you can see you put it in gradually. You want to make sure that the t-shirt is not scrunched up in a little ball. You want to make sure that it's fairly open so that the entire surface area of the t-shirt is able to absorb the dye. Okay, so that's our first one. Let's take our second one. Okay, Now the other reason that you want to make sure you don't have too many t-shirts in the dye bath at the same time, why we're only doing 2 today, is because for the same reason as the air bubbles, okay, if you've got too much material in your dye bath and it's not completely submerged and able, there we go, that was fun, and you're not able to move the t-shirts freely around in the dye bath, they're not going to dye evenly. So once you've got them in, you want to make sure that you squeeze out any excess air bubbles that might be in there, okay? And the first 10 minutes of the dye bath are the most important, okay? These first 10 minutes are where it's going to absorb the most concentration of the dye, alright? So you want to make sure that for the first 10 minutes you're stirring it constantly, okay? So come take a look. Okay, so once you've got this, after the first 10 minutes mixed up, what you can do is you can put it to one side, okay? Put the lid back on, and you're going to want to check on it about every 10 minutes, stir everything up, just so that it doesn't sit in the same position for too long, because if that happens, just like with the air bubbles, okay, you're going to get certain areas that are more saturated with the dye than others, and it's going to be blotchy in the end. And you don't want blotchy, you want a nice smooth color. So, a couple of things that I want to go over before we finish up here, okay? First thing, what I talked about in the beginning, the pre-treatment. Now this is very important when you're using organic cotton t-shirts or any cotton t-shirts, because basically there are 2 kinds of natural fibers that you can dye at home, okay? There's protein-based and there's fiber-based. Now cotton is a fiber-based. Protein-based is actually much easier to dye because just like your hair, it has cuticles. Okay? Once you've treated these cuticles to open up, it's much easier for the dye to suck in and to set. Okay? With cotton, you don't have these same cuticles. It's a different kind of fiber. So you need to pre-treat the cotton in order for the dye molecules to be able to stick and stay on the cotton. Okay? For more information on that, take a look at our tutorial on how to mordant organic cotton t-shirts. Next thing that I want to go over, why we're only doing 2 t-shirts in this pot, okay? Now, the reason that we're only doing 2 t-shirts is because of the size of the pot, okay? You want to make sure that you've got enough liquid to completely cover your t-shirts, or whatever material you're using. And you want to also make sure that it's not too condensed, because all of these things are going to add to the problem of splotchiness, of having, you know, certain areas that are more concentrated than others. Now, if you're doing tie-dyeing, it's less of an issue because that's the effect you're going for in the first place. But if you're trying to get just one beautiful solid color, you want to make sure that you're not over stuffing your pot with too much material. So, I hope you've enjoyed our tutorial on how to dye organic cotton t-shirts with regular all-purpose dye that you can get at any craft store. Okay, and if you've enjoyed this, please take a moment, take a look at our website. That's www.poplove-designs.com. You can take a look at our whole line of organic cotton t-shirts and awesome eco-friendly fashions. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. We'll be happy to answer them for you. Good luck and happy dyeing!